Hey everyone, imagine this. You wake up one morning in 1960s rural Japan. The town you grew up in is blanketed in fog. The streets you know twist off into shapes you don't recognize. And at every turn, haunted faces, monstrous apparitions, and your own fears whisper that something deep inside you might break. That's Silent Hill F. And trust me, I've walked those misty alleys, held that trembling flashlight, and no, I didn't expect everything waiting in the gloom. Today we're doing a full-on deep dive into Silent Hill F. We'll cover everything from the setting and story without spoiling the twists, gameplay mechanics, graphics and art direction, sound and music, performance and technical issues, controls and accessibility, replay value, innovation, comparisons with other horror games, and in the end, I'll give you my personal pros and cons after spending a lot of time with it. If you're thinking whether to play it or just enjoyed it already, this video is for you. Stick around because some of what Silent Hill F does right does so in places I wasn't expecting. First up, where and when can you play this game? Silent Hill F drops September 25th, 2025 globally. For those who pre-order the deluxe edition, there's a 48-hour early access starting September 23rd. The supported platforms are PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, and Windows PC through Steam, Epic Game Store, and Microsoft Store. It is not coming to last-gen consoles like PS4 or Xbox One. There are multiple editions, standard and deluxe, with the deluxe giving digital extras, soundtrack, art book, etc., plus early access. Prices in many regions are around US $69.99 for standard and $79.99 for deluxe. All right, now with the basics out of the way, let's get into what the game actually is. What's good, what's rough, and whether all that atmosphere holds up when you're sweating in your chair. What makes Silent Hill F stand out immediately is its setting, 1960s Japan in a small mountain pass town called Ebisugaoka. The protagonist is Hinako Shimizu, a regular high school girl whose familiar life slowly unravels when fog descends and the town becomes something else. The game is not directly connected to earlier Silent Hill locations or characters, so no worrying about missing lore. It's standalone, which helps both newcomers and longtime fans. The story is written in part by Ryukishi 07 of Higurashi and Umineko fame, which means you can expect emotional tension, mystery, psychological weight, and some wise reality bending this way moments. Themes of anxiety, societal pressure, identity, fear, and the interplay between beauty and terror run deep. One message from the devs is, find the beauty in terror. From playing, I felt it often balances calm moments, just wandering through rice fields, hearing cicadas, or the wind in wooden houses, with sudden tension, fog rolling in, weird ambient whispers, shadows flickering. It's not always loud. Sometimes what you don't see hurts more. Mechanics in Silent Hill F pull from classic survival horror, but with fresh elements. There are puzzle-solving parts tied to the environment and culture, urban legends, shrines, and sometimes maybe scarecrows, which often force you to stop, reflect, and maybe even backtrack. I liked those. They break tension in good ways. Combat is more action-oriented than some previous Silent Hill entries. You have melee weapons, pipes, spears, possibly others, and there's a stamina, dodge, and parry system. Some moments it feels visceral, at other times a little stiff. From my experience in tight monster fights or boss-like encounters, the risk of misjudging timing for dodges or parries looms large. That adds tension, but sometimes it can lead to frustration. There's also a psychological survival side, sanity, choices, maybe even resource scarcity. It's not just swing your weapon until everything dies. You have to manage your state, both physically, health, stamina, and mentally through story decisions and exploration. That said, it doesn't punish you mercilessly. There are difficulty settings, and I found story mode easier in terms of combat, letting me soak up more of the atmosphere without dying every few minutes. One of the coolest mechanics, the fog and environmental shifts. As you progress, the town warps, doors change, familiar routes become twisted, visuals distort. You never feel entirely safe moving forward. That kind of disorientation is used cleverly. Visually, Silent Hill F is gorgeous. For a horror game which often leans dark and shadowy, this one leans scenic terror. Rice fields under moonlight, wooden architecture, traditional Japanese motifs, temples, shrines, sliding doors, all rendered with great detail. The fog effects are especially impressive. They roll, shift, obscure, revealing just enough to make you want to see more while also hiding what might kill you. I had several moments where I paused just to look around or admire the lighting until something moved and I remembered why I was there. The monster designed by Kara is unsettling in a way that mixes classic Silent Hill grotesque with Japanese horror influences, deformities, partial human forms, uncanny shapes, and a lot of "what was that sound behind me" design. It uses negative space, silhouettes, shadows, so not everything is shown, leaving space for your imagination. That's powerful. Sound and music are huge strength. Akira Yamaluka returns, which already gives instant credibility to the score. The music shifts between subtle, atmospheric hums to full horror crescendos. Ambient sounds, the creaking of wood, distant voices, the rustle of leaves, bugs, and wind all get turned up in ways that make quiet moments just as scary as loud ones. I played some sections with headphones, and yes, I jumped. Controls are generally responsive, but not perfect. Swinging weapons have weight. Movement in fog is sometimes a bit slippery, or sluggish depending on settings, on purpose, I think, to add weight to each step. There were moments where I missed time to dodge because the character's turning animation lagged slightly, especially when juggling camera, dodge, and weapon. It's not broken, but it's one of those you'll get it after a few tries or you'll rage quit for a minute. Performance depends heavily on the hardware. On PS5 and high-end PC, the fancy graphical modes shine. Good texture detail, dynamic lighting, fog, shadows, reflections. On lower spec PCs or in modes targeting higher visuals, you'll see frame drops or stutters in dense scenes. Fog plus particle effects plus multiple monster animations can stretch the engine. I ran into some hiccups in mid to late game in particularly complex areas, but nothing game-breaking, more like, yeah, I wish that moment felt a little smoother. Accessibility features are decent. There are multiple difficulty modes, including story mode, which slows some combat or penalties, possibly toggles for subtitles, visual assistance, etc. I would have liked more in options, perhaps more camera settings, more control remapping, maybe color blindness modes if available. I expect Konami has included some of that, but I noticed some gaps, e.g. no obvious extreme assist mode during the time I played. Does Silent Hill F encourage replaying? Yes, and in good ways. There are branching choices in the story that affect Hinako's fate. Exploration reveals secrets, hidden side content, perhaps alternate or multiple endings, depending on what you find and decide. Some puzzles or paths are only accessible after certain events. During my sessions, I found one route I hadn't seen in my first playthrough that added a lot of depth. Also, for players who want more focus on narrative and atmosphere, story mode gives you smoother pacing. For those who want more challenge, higher difficulties, or optional combat-heavy encounters give more attention, so it caters to both kinds of players. How does Silent Hill F compare to its predecessors and to other horror games? Well, it's different in a few ways. The Japanese setting is a big shift from many past Silent Hill games, which were often set in fictional versions of American locales. That gives it a different cultural texture, architecture, folklore, reactions, soundscapes feel fresh. Combat is more deliberate than in older Silent Hill games. There's more emphasis on melee, stamina, dodging, and parrying, which brings it closer, in some respects, to action horror than purely survival horror. Some people might compare parts of that to modern Souls-like mechanics, but the devs themselves have pointed out that they don't want Silent Hill F to be a Souls-like, and that story mode lessens punishing combat. Compared to recent horror titles, Silent Hill F balances well between narrative, ambience, and action. It doesn't lean into jump scares as the sole mechanism. It uses mood, sound, visuals, and that helps it avoid some horror fatigue. But it also doesn't shy away from making you get your hands dirty. Combat, risk, resource management are there. From a personal side, when I first entered Ebisugaoka under thick fog, I felt that familiar Silent Hill dread, loneliness, the unknown. Wandering through an overgrown shrine in moonlight, hearing footsteps just beyond visibility, that feeling came back in a way I